Welcome to Horror Year, where every story is a journey into the unknown. If you're brave enough to face your darkest fears and uncover the most chilling tales, you've come to the right place. So, dim the lights, turn up the volume, and subscribe to Horror Year. Your journey into terror begins now. Basements have always held a special place in the world of horror. Dark, cold, and hidden beneath the surface, they serve as the perfect breeding grounds for the unknown. These spaces, often neglected and forgotten, can harbor things far more sinister than just dust and cobwebs. In the shadows of these subterranean rooms, horrors linger, waiting to be discovered. Here are 3 unsettling tales that delve into the terrifying secrets that basements can hold. Enter if you dare, but remember, some things are better left undisturbed. Tom's grandfather, who formerly resided in the family's ancient home, had often told him stories about the Red Room. There was a room in the basement with a door painted a dark, eerie red that was always shut. His grandfather would tell him tales about rituals performed in the room in the past, although he never specified what kind of ceremonies. Tom knew he had to visit the Red Room for himself when he inherited the mansion. In his grandfather's study, he discovered the key concealed behind an old yellowed piece of paper with the words, "Do not enter," scribbled on it. He headed for the basement, ignoring the warning. The basement's drab gray walls made the Red Room stand out sharply, and its entrance seemed to be blazing ominously. He opened the door with shaky hands and went inside. With the exception of an odd, elaborate sign etched into the floor and darkly discolored by what appeared to be blood, the chamber was tiny and empty. Old, faded pictures of people in dark robes, standing in a circle and carrying out some sort of ceremony, covered the walls. The door slammed behind Tom as he moved in to study the engravings. Even as he ran to it, the door remained in place. He pounded on the door, and panic struck because no one was present to hear him. The temperature plummeted abruptly, and he could see his breath trailing behind him. Then he sensed it, someone observing him. Something started to emerge from the center of the floor sign as it started to glow. A shadow-clad creature emerged from the floor, seemingly crawling up from the depths of hell, and was followed by a bony and clawed hand. With nowhere to run, Tom backed against the wall. Reaching out, the figure's eyes glowed in the dark like coals. His vision went blurry, and the room started to spin as soon as it touched him. He last glimpsed the creature's face, which was twisted into a hideous smile. Days later, when Tom's family did find him, the Red Room was sealed once more. He was seated in the middle of the room with his eyes wide open and his face frozen in horror when they burst down the door. Though he would never speak again, he was still alive. Carly's pals and she had always wondered why her grandmother's basement door was shut. Every time they went to visit, they would inquire about it, and her grandma would politely tell them to stay away from there. However, one summer when they were left alone in the house, their curiosity overcame them. Finding the key, which was kept in an ancient dusty box in the attic, took hours. They made their way to the door from the basement, excited and apprehensive at the same time. Carly turned the key, hesitated a moment. There was a little dark room with stone walls and a dirt floor as the ancient lock creaked open. The smell of rotting permeated the air. An aged and cracked wooden chair stood in the middle of the space, surrounded by thick, corroded chains fastened to the ground. However, what drew their attention was the person seated in the chair, its face hidden by long hair, and its head hunched forward. Carly cried out, but her pals pushed her to examine more closely. The figure stayed still. In an attempt to appear brave, one of her companions leaned out and moved the hair out of her face. As soon as he touched it, the head sprang upward, displaying a face contorted in unending pain and a frozen mouth that let forth a mute scream. The figure started to stir, tugging at the chains in an attempt to get to his feet, while the links rattled. They bolted, locking the door and tossing the key down the basement drain as they did so. Upon hearing about what had transpired, Carly's grandmother merely nodded, as though she had anticipated it. She said, "You ought never to have opened that door. It won't be locked for very long now." Carly heard the sound of shackles rattling from the basement that night, and then she heard the distinct creak of a door opening. There have always been whispers spoken about the old house on Sycamore Street. No one lived in the residence for more than a year, according to the residents, before leaving pale-faced and silent about their reasons. Upon moving in, the Johnsons dismissed the warnings as mere ghost stories meant to frighten inexperienced neighbors. The reality soon became apparent to them. The last area of the house they investigated was the damp and frigid basement. Mr. Johnson said it would be ideal for keeping their extra boxes and decorations for the holidays. However, he felt a shiver go down his spine as soon as he downed the rickety wooden stairs. Small things at first, like a toolbox that would always be on the other side of the room from where he left it, and a light bulb that only seemed to blink when he was by himself. However, he soon began to hear the noises. There was scratching emanating from the shadowy corners like nails on a chalkboard. He told himself it was nothing more than rats. He was unpacking one night when the light flickered once more and then totally out, leaving him in the dark. Reaching for his phone, he tried to locate a route out with its meager light. He turned and saw it there, a shadow that was closer to him than the surrounding darkness slithering down the floor. The light on the phone flickered and he paused, barely making out the creeping mass. Though it lacked form, a sinister energy seemed to pulse through it. Subsequently, he detected a low, guttural mumble emanating from the darkness itself. "Come along with us." Mr. Johnson slammed the door behind him as he hurried up the stairs. But every night the whispers got louder as they persisted and reverberated throughout the house. After a month, they packed up and moved out, leaving everything behind. The home remains empty as ever and the shadow waits for a new occupant.